Hello, everyone. Hello, 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 and welcome. Welcome once again to our Sunday Satsang. I'm making sure that I have the access to all the questions, which I do. Very good. And all the questions, which I do. Very good. Excellent. So, just gonna please, as always, just type in your name and where you are listening from. It's always wonderful. It also helps me make sure that you can hear me and that I'm actually seeing your questions when they come in so I can answer them. One of the things I love about doing satsang is that it is just spontaneous. I do a lot of classes and I have to prepare for them and put a lot of things together and make stuff work. So it's a real joy. Satsang, I just kind of turn everything on, sit down, and just see what happens. One of those spontaneous moments. See what kind of questions are on people's hearts today, and what kind of stuff that you want to know about. Okay, good. I'm seeing Patang says hi, GP. Good. Iwa says namaste. Good to listen to you from Poland. Excellent, excellent. I'm actually going live on my iPad, which is sitting on a stand, and so I'll be reading all your questions here on my phone. Totally mobile today. How about it? Marlene says hi from Alamo, Texas. Hello, welcome, Marlene. Welcome to everybody, actually. And those of you who are just joining, I just did get started, so please leave your leave your comments where you're listening from. And of course, remember this is satsang. It's an open floor for exploring and discovering our true selves, who we really are. Not who we think we are, not who we've been told we are, not any beliefs about yourself, but the actual direct experience of yourself as you actually are. And it is unbelievably simple and direct and effortless. You don't need a complicated or complex ideology or theology to simply know that you are, to simply be aware of that simple sense of existing. That simple sense of existing has within it the power to create universes, universe upon universe. But because it is so quiet, it is so empty of characteristics, we pass right over it. We're more interested in complex ideas and figuring things out and making sense of this or that. That the reality, the simple reality of our existence, just tends to go right by us. It isn't interesting for our mind. As a matter of fact, it can actually be downright boring if we're listening to our minds. But when you say something, I'm listening to my mind, or I want to quiet my mind, or would say in meditation, I would ask, who are you? Who is it that's looking at the mind? Obviously, it's not the mind. And that's like, it's so self-evident and so powerful, because it means that no thought you can have about yourself is the truth. At least not the whole truth. Yeah, you can have thoughts about yourself. There's preferences and desires and experiences and memories, and all of that's going on. But none of those actually nail it. None of those actually indicate to you what you are. And when you even ask that question, even with our most deep spiritual intention about it, when you ask that question, our habit is we're looking for some kind of idea of ourselves to say, that's what I am. We're looking for some kind of concept, some kind of improved self-image. But the reality of our being isn't a self-image at all. It's what's experiencing the images. It's even experiencing that sense of identifying with the image that is the cause of all of our troubles. It's the cause of all the mischief. It's the real mischief maker, identification with a thought about yourself rather than the actual you. Because no thought is big enough to contain the magnitude and infinitude of being, which is what you actually are. Yes, we appear in a certain form, if you're male and female, and race and all of that stuff. Right? But that's only how we appear to be. It's not what we are, any more than that water can take the shape of a watering can or a cup or an old tire in the field. Right? And it's in that shape, but it never becomes the tire. It's always this capacity to be anything. And that's the real nature of all existence. It's the nature of your existence. But we have gotten ourselves so wrapped up in the ideas we have about ourselves that we have missed the bigger picture. The idea of you is not you. It's a momentary thing. And how many ideas have you had about yourself over your lifetime? I mean, really, at one time you thought, this is it, this is what I am, this is who I am, and then you're not. And then, oh no, this is the one what I am. I used to, my spiritual journey, I was looking for the definitive aha. I was looking for the ultimate knowing, right? And little by little it began to dawn on me that there was no such thing, that any kind of knowing, any kind of knowledge accepted becomes a limitation, that the reality of our being is beyond anything that can be put into thoughts or words. And yet it has plenty of space for all thoughts and all words and all experiences, but it's just never bound by them. That's the key. Non-dual spirituality is not an escape from life. It's not trying to withdraw from life. You're not going up to the mountain to sit in a cave. It's very much engaged in life directly and viscerally. Right? It's just the deeply spiritual perspective is that I am never ever confined to what I'm experiencing. I'm never limited by what I'm experiencing. What I'm experiencing right in this moment is simply what I'm experiencing in this moment. And I, that is experiencing it, am beyond all definitions. You, right now, the beingness that is listening to me right this minute is not at all bound by the conditions that happen to be going on in your life at this moment. You are never, ever limited by or stuck in anything. Your freedom is absolute. Questions are beginning to pour in. Yay. Jill from snowy Massachusetts. Oh, it's snowing out there, huh? Moonlight Delight. Hi, Delight. Hi, GP. Hi, Moonlight. Alessandra. Hi, Alessandra. Hello from Monterey. Beautiful, beautiful part of the country. Monterey, Carmel, that whole area. Just gorgeous. Ursula from Madeira Island in Portugal. John David from Pipestone, Minnesota. Hello, John. Poppy says, hello, G. I hope you're feeling great. I am. Thank you. Ivailo, hello from Bulgaria. Wonderful. Sab Will. Hi, Sab. Sab in Paris. Barbara from Sweden. Hello, hello. Wonderful, wonderful. Patang says, reality is just a happening. Reality is happening in me. Once realized that, I can't not go back. It's what is. I am consciousness experiencing itself, and that's it. Yes. Now, let that deepen, right? Let that get really, that insight. It's very profound insight, but let it really sink in. Yes, you can't go back. It is a dramatic shift in perception that is self-confirming. You simply know it. You know it to be true. But you know it's not the end of the road. It will expand outward from there. It's not just true for you. It's true for everything and everyone you experience. They too are of that exact same substance. So let that sense of being pure consciousness just continue to expand and take in everything else. Everything else comes with it. That's the path of the Bodhisattva. It doesn't stop there. It actually begins to grow from there. Let it sink in. That insight will eradicate all the traumas, all the illusions, all of the habits of the past, all the vasanas, because they do come up. And there will always be an invitation to fall back into the false sense of who you are. Just stay awake. Just really rest. Just really rest in that insight. Let it just permeate what that feels like. And then just let it branch out and branch out and branch out until it becomes just this unbelievably overwhelming sense of love, compassion, oneness, embrace. Thank you for sharing that, Patang. Moonlight says, animals do not cling nor resist, therefore shouldn't they be awake? I suspect your answer is no. So my question is, why does life need to acquire an ego, then lose it in order to recognize its true self? And Haron says, hi from Gouda. Hi, Haron. It's just kind of the way that it worked, right? Are animals awake? They are free from associations. They are free from a sense of self. They are free from a sense of self and others. But they are not awake, in that they are not self-realized. And it does appear as though on this path of self-realization, we must first acquire a sense of self and then transcend it. It seems to be that that's just the way it is. It's a hard thing to try to explain. Well, why would it need to do that? And in a certain sense, it doesn't. It's almost as if the self gets to enjoy itself in this play of consciousness of awakening. It's like it's just rediscovering itself all the time. And it's like, it's like when you're in love with somebody, right? I mean, it seems like there's just something new all the time coming up to love. You're just embracing so many aspects of yourself. The infinite nature of the self is constantly unfolding itself to itself, coming to know itself. So I think it's best, that kind of question, to just kind of take it into your heart. Because it's a hard question to ask until you've actually experienced in a direct way that liberation from the false sense of self. And then you can see that even the false sense of self and the seeking and the awakening itself is part of the dream, and that you've never actually been asleep. But that's what's been being experienced. That's probably not a very satisfying answer to your question. I totally understand it. It's kind of one of the things that you know what? This just is the way it works. Just like there is such a thing as necessary suffering. If we were just completely content and diva heaven dwelling beings, we'd never actually experience the full awakening of consciousness. According to the Buddha, the human life, with all of its ups and downs and contradictions, is the perfect environment, the only environment that can bring somebody to a full awakening. And so that includes everything we're experiencing. When you experience, misery or suffering, there's a natural inclination to want to find a relief from it. At first we seek relief in places where there really isn't any. We get a temporary relief, and then it's back again. But little by little we become wiser, we become more nuanced, we become more subtle, we become more discerning, until we finally do get to the heart and soul, the real ultimate cause of suffering, which is a false identification, thinking of yourself as less than what you actually are. And at that point, all of our effort starts to be directed towards waking up. So a question like this, it's a good question, it's a legitimate question, but what I say, the answer to this question is the awakening. And that's really the only way. Your mind will not be satisfied with any answer I give, because it just doesn't seem to make any sense. Why would perfect being need to imagine itself imperfect so it could experience its perfection? I don't know. But that is definitely how it works. I know that there's just an explosion of joy when the realization of your true being dawns. There's this explosion of joy, which is as much just a completely relief from the burden, the heaviness of the human ego. So I know that's not a very satisfying answer, but that's when I just, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you. The Comforter will come and reveal all things, is the way they put it in the Apocalypse. And the Comforter is simply the realization of your true nature. And that will answer all of these questions. So it's my job to just keep pointing you back, pointing you back, pointing you back. Yep, it does seem to work that way. So let's just accept it and continue to move increasingly towards the reality of your being. And the reality of your being is the simple recognition that it is awareness that is aware of my words right now. You are conscious of me speaking. Means you, that's consciousness, isn't it? That's it. That's all there is to it. Doesn't need anything more elaborate. That's who you actually are. Whatever that is, that's what you are, right? So doesn't it kind of seem like a good idea to be exploring exactly what is that? What is the nature of consciousness? What is the nature of my own being? I think it's the only thing worth pursuing. And believe me, I've tried a lot of other stuff. I have not lived a monochrome life, but nothing compares to the wonder of just simply that's the simple recognition that this ever-present, effortless, silent, conscious awareness is your very nature. Catherine London. Hi, GP. Today I saw that there was no outside world because there's no such thing as an outside. No separate self, no outside world, only consciousness. It literally blew my mind away. Wonderful. Now, just marinate in that knowledge, in that insight. It does blow the mind away. because the context by which we live our lives is that there's a me and there's a you, there's an internal and there's an external, and I have to deal with the external, and I have to deal with my internal thoughts, feelings, and all that sort of stuff. And there is no external world. Everything is experienced of consciousness. It's all made of consciousness. So coming to really understand what it means to be consciousness, not just someone who is conscious, but consciousness itself is to know yourself. So it becomes what Buddha referred to as the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. It becomes very, very intimate. It's not an abstraction. I mean, oh, this is me. This is what I am. And then I can see that I imagined that there was this external world out there that I was functioning with, and now I see it's all happening right here, right now. Right? I mean, the experience you're having, you're not having it out there. Everything is being experienced right here, intimately. This is the simple nature of consciousness. And it is simply an illusion that what we're looking at actually exists independently from me, the one looking at it. It's the snake and the rope in the Hindu story. There's definitely stuff. There's definitely experience. But what's the nature of it? Well, the nature of all experience is consciousness. You can't have experience without consciousness, right? You can't have unconscious experience or non-conscious or nothingness, right? It'd be oblivion. It would be nihilism. Everything that is experienced is happening within consciousness. And it's simply our habits and our training that we believe that what is being experienced exists independently from consciousness. And it's such a habit of thought, and it is so ingrained in all the systems of the earth, of human beings, which, of course, if we look around the world, we see all of those systems are collapsing. Well, why is that? Because they're not really founded on the truth. They're not founded on the genuine nature of being, and therefore they are flimsy. They will fall apart because they're only held together by belief and convention. And when they stop serving their purpose and start falling apart, we begin to realize that they were insubstantial the whole time. Why were they insubstantial? Because they were based on the belief that we are limited mortal physical beings living in a limited mortal physical world. And we are not. The non-dual insight is a 180-degree shift from the normal way that people perceive and believe in the world. It's as dramatic a shift as it was when it finally became clear that the sun isn't going around the earth and the earth is not flat. It's a ball and it's spinning, and that gives the illusion of the sun moving. We believed it for a long, long time, at least in the West. They never believed that in the East. But we believed that for a long, long time in the West. We made calculations based on it. Of course, the calculations were wrong. You couldn't get dates right. You couldn't make a trustworthy calendar. Something was off in the mix, and it was actually Galileo's talking about around the sun, the heliocentric model rather than the Earth-centric model. Of course, he got in a lot of trouble with the church, but the church needed what he had because you could actually make a functioning calendar, and they needed that. So they kind of got sucked into it, really by because the way the system of thought and creation was simply not working. We're seeing the same thing now, the complete collapse of all the institutions. And they're collapsing because they are no longer serving the purpose. They're serving an idea that is completely outmoded. So it's that dramatic a shift to start seeing things as a projection of the mind rather than the perceiving of something that exists independently from me. Which means that what I think something is what it is. That's what I experience. And to know something as it really is, you don't examine it. You examine the consciousness that's looking at it. If you know the consciousness that's looking at something, you know what the thing is, because that's what it's made out of. To know reality, you don't go taking apart stuff, which is classical analysis. That's the hole we dug ourselves into about 3,000 years ago, and that is what is collapsing all around us. It's an incomplete model. It's an illusory model. It's backwards. So you don't know something by taking it apart and finding smaller and smaller particles. You know something by knowing the one who's looking at it, because it is a direct reflection of you. So that question of who are you becomes, it becomes the question. And we don't settle for a quick answer. Don't settle for, oh, okay, I'm conscious awareness, right? Don't let that be just another thought, a good spiritual thought, a non-dual thought, right? I'm nothing, I'm no one. Don't go there. Let this be something that becomes a matter of importance to you. Don't just settle, right? Don't stop until you're a Buddha, until this entire thing, the doors are blown off of everything. Because yes, it blows your mind away. But what's the feeling? The feeling is that of being free. The personal realization of Buddha knowledge, insight deeply into your own true nature. And that will continue to expand. Yes, the awakening can be in a single moment, but it doesn't end there. Right? It just permeates everything. And it goes beyond you, permeating the entire world, everything around you, all beings. You save all beings from suffering. And of course, they're talking about saving your own beliefs and thoughts and illusions about other beings. There's really no other being to save, but that's the place we have to come to. This insight, just let it continue to expand. This is consciousness. This consciousness. This is this microphone right here. Consciousness. It's made of consciousness. That is, it's not a thing that is conscious, right? There are no things that are consciousness. There's only consciousness. It is not an attribute of the thing. The thing is simply an appearing within consciousness, like an iceberg in the ocean, right? It is the ocean. It's made of the ocean. It's all the same stuff. It's just in a slightly different state, and in that state, it goes through transformations. But its nature, its essential nature, is conscious awareness. It is not matter. Matter is a mistake. Thank you for sharing that, Catherine. That is absolutely wonderful. Sunil says, I was afraid to ask this, but I will anyway. I have not been intimate with a woman for over 6 months, and yesterday a friend invited me to an orgy. Well, okay. My reaction was first of revulsion and envy, and let's see if I can find the rest. A slight excitement at the idea. I realize these are my conflicts between safety and freedom. I don't know if going to one next time would help me to overcome my fear of rejection and intimacy, fear of women, even though it seems crude and jumping in at the deep end. What are your thoughts? I tend to stay out of people's bedrooms. It's really easy to take a position on something like that. Oh, you shouldn't do that, or it's not spiritual. I don't know what it is. I can't say that the experiences life is lining up for you. The whole point is to bring you to a deeper sense of yourself and greater freedom. Obviously, you don't need to go to an orgy in order to feel free and feel your capacity to know intimacy. Orgies really aren't very intimate. They're just they're really about the sex, and it's fine. Enjoy it. But what I always caution people is don't. You got an invitation. If you feel like doing it, do it. If you don't. But don't read anything into it that really isn't there. The only thing that's going to liberate you to have the capacity to not be afraid of women and to have intimacy with another human being is this the constant path of self-awareness and growth. Because the more you know yourself, the more open you are. The more open you are, the more willing you are to share yourself with others, and that's what intimacy is. That's all it is. And in order to be truly intimate, you have to be willing to expose yourself as you are, warts and all, nervousness and all, fear and all. Right? Because the fear of intimacy is actually a fear of being rejected, of not being acceptable, of not being wanted, of not being loved. Right? And in order for you to experience that kind of intimacy, you have to be willing to let yourself be seen as you actually are, which means the risk of rejection. But that's the only way we can actually be intimate, right? You can't be pretending to be somebody else and have intimacy. That's what happens. We're on good behavior and stuff. We get into a relationship, and little by little, the pretenses fall away, and more of you show up, and more of the other shows up. And before you know it, it's like, well, who is this person? I never really knew them. Well, it's because you didn't know yourself. So, is that, there's nothing morally wrong with, indulging in sex for sex sake. I pass no judgment on it. Will it benefit you in some ways? It very well might. I have no idea. I can't say, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want, go to it. It's up to you to discern, is this really enhancing me? And sometimes you have to do things in order to find it out. Sometimes you can't just kind of sit around and think about it, right? You just kind of do it. And if you do it, and you'll experience exactly what it is and what benefit it brings to you, or what it doesn't benefit. You'll find whether you're comfortable or not, whether you like it or not, whether it's useful or not. Things like that can also become very seductive, because a great deal of physical pleasure is very intoxicating. One of the reasons real Tantra teaching is so powerful is that it gives a context to the sexual experience that brings it to another level, that makes it about intimacy and not just about physical pleasure, because physical pleasure is quite intoxicating, and it can be quite distracting, right? We naturally gravitate towards pleasure and away from pain, but spiritual growth means not avoiding your inner pain and traumas and the like, but to really bring the light of truth and the light of love to them. So I think that's about the best I can say about it. Like I said, there's nothing morally wrong with it, right? You just have to be honest with yourself as to whether or not it's appealing, and you may need to do that in order to find out. But believe me, you don't need to do anything to be free. That's important to know. No experience, all experiences will be our experiences. And we're here, we have body, mind, the whole thing is to taste experience. This is how consciousness tastes experience. And you will find all sorts of different experiences to have. Right? But and those experiences can be quite liberating, opening, but you'll know that they're always an experience, and that the ultimate awakening to who you are is not an experience. It is not just something that happens. It's a realization of what has always been here, that is not an experience. It is not something that comes and goes. Is that helpful for you, Sunil? Thank you for asking that. Yeah, don't feel the least bit shy about asking significant questions like that, because it's important. In the West, we're really so hung up about sex. It's really blown out of proportion. It's either exploited, or it's it's this horrible thing you should never do. It's like, You know, it's a beautiful, natural, functioning part of life. And like anything else, if the right kind of spiritual insight is brought to it, it can be life enhancing. You know, a deep, intimate relationship between the two people can heal lifetimes worth of trauma and abuse, because creating a mutually safe space for one another. So, yeah, nothing in. Thank you for being so honest about that. That's really, really wonderful, and I'm curious what you decide to do actually, and what your experience is. Meryl Port, hello, Meryl says hi from sunny Australia. Yeah, you guys are headed into fall as we're head into spring. Well, not quite yet. Quite a bit of time actually. Yeah. Sally, hi from Adelaide. Yay. Uh, Divin Divinaire says, no thought is big enough to contain what you are. Very profound, GP. Ah, it's true. It's true. Thoughts are a delineation, aren't they? Right? A thought is simply a line drawn on the infinite background. You know, it's like a huge piece of white paper, right? You're so aware of the paper, but if you start drawing a lot of stuff on it, your attention may be drawn to the things that are on it, and yet at the same time, you're always looking at the paper. You know, you can draw a circle on the paper, and if you got inside that circle, you'd think you were contained, not realizing that the circle's made of the paper, and outside is exactly the same as inside. That there's a continuity, there's a continuum there. All objects are simply a delineation on the background of the infinite, and so you being able to embrace the infinite means that you're even more subtle than the infinite, and you can see all the lines, you can see all the forms, and you're beyond them. What you are is beyond them. So all thoughts usable, they're useful, they're important, they allow us to communicate, they allow us to experience oneness, but there is no thought big enough to contain you. There is no thought big enough to give you full expression. It's like, you know, it takes an infinite number of songs to give expression to the infinitude of music. And music is not limited to any song. Right? You are not limited to any thought. You believe you are. You believe this thought that you're holding of yourself, this self-image, is actually you. And that's where the limitation is. It's artificial. It's an illusion. There is no limitation. That thought is not you. It is just who you happen to be, how you happen to be appearing now. And if you believe that that's actually who you are, you will feel the containment. You'll feel the imprisonment. And you think that somehow I've got to get out of this prison. And I keep telling you, there is no prison. There's no light at the end of the tunnel because there's no tunnel. It is completely made by the mind and then believed by the mind, and we feel contained in it. You are not contained in any thought. You are not stuck anywhere. You are not limited in any way whatsoever. That's the fact. So you can eat that up and enjoy it because that's the truth. So you don't need any thought at all to know yourself. Matter of fact, the sense of being isn't a thought, is it? You're not thinking about being, you are. That's the real deal. Let's see. Speaking truth. Hello, GP. When you speak or interact with a person, GP, do you speak from the heart every time? Or do you speak from your intuition? How do you make a decision with heart? I hear every say, never listen to the mind. Yeah, anytime anybody says never do this, never do that, it's it's usually an oversimplification. Um, the intuition and the heart are really one and the same. Um, the, the mind, when it is no longer identified with a person with a finite form, is is liberated, and the mind becomes the creative power of the universe. When you are identified with the person, which is merely a thought in the mind, um, at that point, the mind then is creating all sorts of images and concepts and thoughts based on the assumption that you are this limited person. So when some say, "Don't listen to your mind," that's what we're talking about. Um, don't don't listen to the thoughts that are based on a finite sense of your own being. Liberate from that, and what happens then is that mind is liberated. The thought forms become harmonious. They begin to express increasingly who you are. And everything begins to conform itself to this view of yourself. And then mind is no longer a problem. Right? It's only when we're still in the midst of believing ourselves to be something that we're not that mind becomes a problem. And at that point, the the pure intelligence, pure mind, pure heart, and love and compassion just kind of merge together. In the Chinese, the symbol for heart and the symbol for mind are the same symbol. They don't see it as this as two things the way we do the way we do in the West. It is a continuum. It is a felt knowing, but it is a knowing, and then it can be a very clear-sighted knowing. And in that environment of openness and spaciousness, thoughts become very useful in communicating this harmony, in knowing intimacy, and being able to in order to be able to have the experience of being one. Right? In order to have the experience of oneness, there has to be a sense of two-ness. It folds into the one. So it's, non-duality is beyond one and two. It's not two, but it's not one. Right? It's it's different. So as far as what do I do when I'm speaking with someone, I'm just present, and I'm letting whatever has to come up in that moment come up. Sometimes it can be insightful, like more of an intuitive thing. Sometimes it can just be a feeling. Sometimes it can just even be sensing and being present with them in their feelings, and especially if the feelings aren't all that pleasant, to just be present with them. And so you see that it all kind of converges, right? It's not like I'm speaking from my intuition now, and now I'm speaking from my heart. They're one and the same. We have two different words for it because there's kind of like a different quality about it. But even the most deep, insightful truth, if it's spoken without that heart behind it, will fall flat. Right? I think what Paul said, even if I have the tongues of angels, in great capacity to be articulate, if I don't have love, I become like a tinkling cymbal or sounding brass. It is the heart that gives it its power, its presence, its vitality, and its wisdom that gives it its precision and its accuracy and its potential for shifting perspective. But you can see that it's like this, like everything else. The heart-mind is just this beautiful flow of energy between what appear to be two poles, but in fact really aren't. Roberta, hi from Covington, Ohio. Hi, Roberta. Nice to have you with us. Om Shanti Om. Bonsoir, GP from the Netherlands. Hello. Good to have you here. Spiral dynamics. Hello from France. If we are all the same awareness, why I am not aware of your thoughts or other people's thoughts? Well, the only reason you're not is because of believing yourself to be separate. So you think of yourself as this separate entity, and then wonder why I can't see other people's thoughts or hear other people's thoughts. Let's also point something out, that I really not all that interested in hearing other people's thoughts. Right? Consider that to be something that's merciful and and not a problem. I find in my own experience that I sense enough of what other people are thinking and feeling to be able to meet them where they are and bring about some form of healing, move the needle a little bit. It's not necessary to know other people's thoughts. We cannot. The reason a question like this comes up is because you're thinking, well, we're all one awareness. You're trying to localize awareness. Awareness is one. Awareness cannot be put into any category. Right? It is not something that you can say, well, we are this awareness. Yeah, you are that awareness. What are you aware of? You only need to be concerned about that which you are aware of. This is the process by which it's awakening. I mean, is there a state that knows all thoughts at all times? I don't think so. I know enlightened master. And it's not what it is at all. Things just kind of come and go as needed. So it's not the fact that that doesn't happen doesn't mean that somehow you're not aware, pure awareness. Just look at your own experience. All you ever know is what's coming in and going out of your awareness. Right? And again, you have this idea that there's other people and these thoughts are going on and that sort of stuff, which is just a projection of yourself. You're sitting here having all these thoughts. Well, they must be sitting here having all these thoughts. And to a certain extent, that is our common experience. But as always, I just want to point you and everyone back to the simple, direct experience of being aware, and let that unfold itself to you. Let's not talk about awareness as if it's this thing, right? That we're all, we've got it on the table now, we're taking it apart, and we're trying to figure out what makes it tick. It's you, right? It's what you are experiencing at every moment, because there's never a moment where, if you're not aware in a moment, nothing's happening. As far as you're concerned, there is no universe. Right? We don't have to worry about whether somebody else knows that or there's other thoughts somewhere. Just keep coming back to the most important point. And the most important point is that is what you are. That's what you are experiencing. Your subjective experience, the flavors that are coming to and through you. Where's their origin? This sense of being. Where did that come from? Did it come from anywhere? Or has that always been here? Don't think about it. Right? Let's not try to define awareness as the awareness of objects. What you're looking at is your own reality, that which is actually happening all the time, which is your awareness. All I'm trying to do is bring you to the point where you see that awareness it's not a you and awareness. There's not a you and that awareness is an aspect of you, in which case awareness wouldn't be, you'd have to be something else. We want to get to what you are. And the only way you can do that is through your self-awareness, self-consciousness, by putting your attention on yourself. Not thoughts about yourself, not ideas about yourself. But take away all things that your sense of I is referring to, and get back just to the I. Undiluted, untainted, nothing else except you. Just you and nothing else. And that's where you'll find that that it all just converges into this place of pure awareness, and you can't get any deeper than that. You can't go any further than that. So you find that awareness isn't an attribute of you, it's the very substance of you. You are awareness. You are not someone who is aware of his thoughts or anything. You are awareness itself, and everything is appearing in it. Then you can just allow that to sink in, to permeate and colonize your whole system, and then let it unfold to you what's happening with others, what's happening in the world, what's going on, what should you do to contribute. Any of those other things, they come out of this place of knowing. And any kind of question, well, you just bring it in there. You look at what you actually know, which is your own being. And you come to trust that. That beingness that you're experiencing, that awareness, is your being, and it's also the infinite intelligence. Everything that's ever ever done, everything that qualifies for, for brilliant or creative or genius or intelligent, came from awareness, didn't it? Appeared in awareness. So it's clearly the source of everything. So just go there because it's you. It's not distant somewhere. It's not something you need to figure out. It's you. It's what's hearing my words right now. That's it. It's that simple. That's your true nature. Awareness is your true nature. It never stops. It's what you are. Is that helpful when I stay stuff like that? He says, yes, consciousness experiences, knows only itself, in itself, by itself. Yes. Yes. That's absolutely true. And again, look, right? We're looking for consciousness as if it was a thing, right? Consciousness is what's doing the looking, right? Consciousness is what's listening, right? This microphone here does not hear me. Right? The ear that's collecting the sound waves is not hearing me. The eardrum that's vibrating in sympathy and creating electronic patterns and all sorts of stuff, none of those are actually hearing me. What's hearing? Where's where the buck stops, right? It's registering right here. I am aware. Whoa. Just focus on that awareness. Just give it attention. The mind doesn't want to do that because the mind can't see anything there, and the mind's always, comparing and contrasting. That's good. That's fine. That's useful. But this doesn't help with that because awareness is not an object that can be viewed, right? Awareness is what's doing the viewing. Awareness is aware of itself, right? Self-awareness. I don't feel very articulate today. I'm sorry if my answers are, because I feel like I'm skirting around it. But I'm really trying to, just really dive down right into the heart of it. And to get into the heart of it is to show you that this is the experience you're having right now. You're that awareness right this minute. That's what's hearing. That is the ultimate awareness. That is the absolute. Dinesh says, hey GP, I loved your video explaining duality. I am creating my own conscious leadership model and always tune in to be inspired. Stay blessed. Oh, wonderful. Great. Conscious leadership. The world certainly needs that. We certainly have an abundance of unconscious leadership. Or probably more accurately is to just call it ignorant. Unconsciousness and ignorance are the same thing. If I know who I am, I know that I'm consciousness. So I can't possibly be unconscious. And of course, nobody can be unconscious. It's just a matter of what we identify as ourselves. What thoughts about us do we believe? I'm urging you to not believe any thought, because no thought's big enough to contain you. Um, Kate Kapoor says, "Thank you for doing what you do, GP. How does clinging and aversion cause suffering?" Um, that's a great question. Yeah, very good. And I love the questions about about how to alleviate suffering. Um, whenever I feel uh, when I'm identified with uh, a, a separate, finite, mortal self, I will feel a sense of lacking. As long as there's me in this universe out there, there's going to be a feeling of lack, and that somehow I've got to get from my environment what I need. The moment I project on something external to myself that I need it in order to be happy, to be safe, to be all of those things, I have created a relationship between myself and it, and I have given it a power over me that it doesn't actually possess. That is attachment. That is clinging, right? We cling to people, we cling to states of mind, we cling to things, we cling to circumstances because we feel we need those. And that's all clinging is. And of course, the opposite is aversion, which is, I'm going to, this, if this happens, this is going to be terrible. But all of that has been created by your own mind. Everything you are seeking, you already are. It's already within you. And to discover it within you doesn't mean you necessarily go without. It just means that if something shows up in the environment or doesn't, you're unaffected by that. You enjoy it when it's there, but you're not destroyed if it doesn't come. Right? If that desire isn't fulfilled, it isn't devastating. It's disappointing, okay, but it isn't essential for your life. So the clinging is really just a projection of what you believe you are missing out on an external world, and then being and then suffering because you don't have what you need. But you do. You're just looking in the wrong place. You think that it's out there, and it's not. It's here. It's in you. Everything is within you. Everything is within consciousness. Consciousness is the source of everything. So even those things that you feel you really need, they're the source of those are consciousness. And the more we realize that, the less concerned we'll be about something being present in the environment or not, in your immediate not, because you know that the substance of it, you know the you know that you can never really be deprived of anything that you need, nor can anything come into your life that could make you less than what you are. So there's no, that takes away all the foundation upon which clinging, attachment, and aversion are based. They they're the natural outcome of identifying yourself as a finite being. Simple as that. If I'm finite, then of course I'm going to need stuff, and I'm going to hold on to it, and I hoard and all sorts of things. Greed arises. That's what greed is thinking that something external is going to give me something that I need, which is based completely on having a picture of yourself as less than what you actually are. You've put yourself into a mental bubble. You believe that this is the real bubble and that all the stuff I need is outside. Pop the bubble, and that won't be a concern anymore. There'll be nothing to hold on to. You just see everything comes and goes. But it doesn't, its coming and going does not affect you. So you don't really have any preference. Awareness doesn't have a preference for what it's aware of. Preference is something that arises also within awareness. Does that help? Was it Bug Kekopor? Does that help? Um, to 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 truly see through, get to that point. See, the state of being free of attachments and aversions is not a spiritual practice that you get to. It is not a kind of a behavior. It's not, you're not just trying to overcome some quality. Their essence, they naturally arise out of a finite sense of identity. And so that's where you want to direct the attention. There's a lot of practices that want to overcome aversion and attachment, and there's some value in that, but they oftentimes still leave quite intact the seeker, the finite being, the one who's trying to attain this spiritual state of freedom from aversion and attachment. Once you know who you are, you're free from aversion and attachment. Period. It's over. If you don't, you can never really be free from it. You can only get yourself into a state where it's, its impact is minimized. But you can't be free because it is the inevitable consequence of a finite sense of self. Unhappiness is the natural state of the ego. We're all trying to find happiness. The ego trying to find happiness is like, it can't. Unhappiness is the nature of the ego. Discontent, dissatisfaction, attachment and aversion. They are the nature of the ego. You can't keep the ego and get rid of the attachment and aversion. You need to see through the ego, which is simply, the ego is simply mistaking the conditioned patterns of our nervous system for ourself. They're just patterns. Patterns of thought, patterns of reaction, patterns of emotion, patterns of association. There's no self in them. They're not you. Once you see that you are aware of those and that it's just conditioned responses and not myself, then you can begin to withdraw from the inevitable kind of inner arguments that go on. And at that point, overcoming aversion and attachment are not some kind of spiritual discipline. They're the natural outcome of simply knowing who you are. It always comes down to knowing yourself as pure awareness. Knowing yourself as you actually are. That's the answer. I know, I give the same answer to every question, don't I? But this is, the mind goes, yeah, that's really good, know who I am, but what about, and then off it goes on these other questions. And of course, the questions are welcome, that's what satsang is for, but notice that your mind does not want to get the answer. It wants to have opportunities for more questions. That's what minds do, right? But you're not your mind. You are not this pattern of thought. You are way, way more than that. Bogdan says, are you a Muslim or are you a Christian person who is good? A Christian person who is a good friend of yours because you have a strong sense of trust to be a good person. Who's a good friend of yours? Well, I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Christian. I'm not really a Buddhist. I have gleaned from all of those traditions, but ultimately the truth is beyond any particular form. That doesn't mean we have to abandon the form. I've students of mine who remain Muslims and Christians, and so the traditions that you honor, and it's self-honoring. It's honoring to the truth. It's honoring to God. But no cultural form is the truth. The truth can take any form. So the truth appears as Muslim, as Christian, and as Hindu, as atheist, as Zen Buddhism, as Tibetan Buddhist. As the truth is not limited, right? It is not a form. It is not. You cannot confine it to any form any more than you can confine music to a song. You can't do it. And humanity has created enormous suffering for itself, simply mistaking the way truth appeared for the actual truth, the clothes it happened to be wearing, as being what's actually really important. And so we have, cultures warring with each other. We have philosophies warring with each other, not realizing that we're the same at the root of it. At the root of it is truth appearing to us. And if we mistake and of course it has to appear in some kind of form. Pure truth is unknowable, unseeable, untouchable. It occupies no space, right? From the point of view of the mind, there's nothing there. So it embodies itself, right? It's like music without a song is like what? What do you got? Nothing. The truth, the ultimate truth, the reality, God, is known through the forms that give it expression. And we discern the spirit in the form. We discern the word in the words. We discern the truth in any tradition. And when you're talking about a sense of trust to be a good person, yes, I guess I'm trustworthy. Yeah, I guess I'm being a good person, not because I'm striving to be a good person through some kind of believing or adhering to some kind of moral code. I just the sheer joy of goodness, the sheer joy of love. Love just feels better than hate. It's not complicated, right? The more it sinks in who I am, the more free I feel. It's kind of a self-fulfilling deal. There are times in my life when I took advantage of people, and I felt terrible. I mean, I just felt, I felt the moral consequences of action. And so I didn't need anybody to lay down rules for me as to how to behave. Just being sensitive enough to the consequences of your own actions is all you need to become moral and good. I've gotten questions about people. Well, if you realize that there's nobody really here, then why can't you can just do what you want and kill people, right? And it's like, why would I want to do that? What possible satisfaction could I do? Is that what freedom is? No, the more free I am, the more I just want to share the freedom. I have no interest in harming anybody. I, I so so I guess I could be I could be an honorary Muslim. I could be an honorary Christian. I could be an honorary Jew. Um, all of those would be the case, but the essential goodness goes beyond all forms, and yet can appear in every single one of those forms. But the essential goodness is simply the nature of being, and the nature of being is love. And the essence of love, what we experience as love, active love, the expression of love between us, it grows directly out of the oneness of consciousness recognizing itself. So we have the one and the many. The one expresses itself in just the infinite variety of the many. This means what it means to be enlightened by all beings. Everything then becomes a stepping stone to your deepening and your awakening. Patty says, hello from Minnesota. Before I am, hi, G. Catherine in Ireland here. Hi, Catherine. Great to have you. Evan says, hi, GP. I think you're great. If you can explain what exactly is the ego, thank you. Keep up the good work. Well, that's a great question. The ego, the simplest way of knowing it is the ego is simply the thought of I. When you say I am, and you are referring to some kind of form, some kind of limited structure, whether it be thought or feeling or experience or the shape of your body, the moment you believe that that is you, the sense of an ego has arisen. That is, there's me and then you. You and I are different, right? That feeling is the ego. It's just thoughts. It's all it is a thought pattern and belief. So the ego's not a thing, right? It's not like this little demon in your head that's running around, making mischief, messing things up on you. It is simply thinking of yourself as less than than infinite awareness, right? If I hold an image of myself that is less than the wholeness of myself, and I believe that is who I am, I have literally created a being in my mind, right, that appears to be self-acting, sentient, uh, you know, a real functioning entity, right? But of course it isn't. It's simply a collection of thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. That's all it is. If you believe them to be yourself, you have taken your being, which is real, you do exist, you absolutely are, and you project that beingness onto what it in fact is nothing but a collection of thoughts and feelings and conditioned patterns. You can remove that identification. Right? The thoughts, the feelings, the patterns, they can still be there. Right? In and of themselves, they're harmless. They don't become an ego until you project a sense of self on them. It's like the clouds are just very nicely moving through the sky, but if you project some kind of an image in there of some demon there or something, suddenly you're going to be afraid of something that doesn't exist. It's all being projected by the mind. That is it. That is, and the mind is nothing other than a collection of thoughts. I mean, the mind isn't a thing, so I said the mind is projecting. I mean, it's just the sense of being a separate self projects upon our everyday experience of thoughts and feelings and preferences and all that stuff, the sense of a self. And that self is finite. Right? So the dissolution of the ego simply means you are no longer projecting a self onto what is nothing other than a bunch of functions. It's like, imagine an extremely sophisticated robot. So sophisticated, so well done that it really perfectly simulates a human being. You wouldn't be able to tell it apart. And you would project on that the idea that there was somebody there looking back at you because all the reactions are there. I mean, we couldn't help it, right? But it's not sentient. There's no self-awareness there. It is incredibly complex and sophisticated set of reactions. That's all the nervous system is, an extremely complex set of reactions. And you, consciousness, have simply projected upon that the idea of a self, and there's no self there. The self is the one doing the projecting. It's, oh, I am this body. The moment you do that, that body seems to be you. It seems to have those characteristics, and so those thoughts become my thoughts, and this pattern of energy is my pattern. And I'm stuck. You're not stuck in there. You have projected upon the simple, unified functioning of life the sense of an individual being where there isn't one. That's why it's a projection. That's why it's an illusion. You're projecting on a form, a sense of entity that it doesn't actually possess. You do, the projector. Is that clear? Is that a good? So the ego has kind of become the modern devil, in psychology and even in spirituality. I've got to overcome my ego. There's nothing to overcome. You have to see through it. You can't just kind of, it's not arrogance, right? It's not conceit. Matter of fact, the ego can be very hard on itself. It can be very self-demeaning. Anything that gives you a clearly defined sense of self that's finite is the ego, right? But just know that it's not a real thing. It is simply a pattern of thought. It's the thought I identified with the body. Take that same thought I and a pure awareness, and that's liberation. You're being liberated from an identification with a finite form and all the patterns of finite form in thought, feeling, and conditioning. That's what liberation is. Oh, I'm not that. I'm this. Time's it getting to be? We've got a little more time. Oof, a lot of questions here. Oh, wow. Greetings from London. Hi, Vicky. What can I do in my day-to-day life to realize my true nature? Well, the easiest thing to do and the most direct is the practice that my teacher recommends, which is Muji. Right now, become aware of being. Right? Nothing extra. You know? Yes, there's thoughts going on, but now just become aware of the fact that you're aware of the thoughts. Right? Be aware of the fact that you simply are. There's a sense of existing, right? There's a sense of being. Now, before that goes out and starts identifying with something, or looks at the list of things that you have to do today, or all of the things that have to happen, even all the things you need to do to attain realization, right? All the steps you have to go through, the practices. Just put all of that aside. Absolutely all of it. No place to go. Nothing to do. You're just here. Just you. Nothing extra. Nothing artificial added. Just you. That sense of being. Now, did you need to do anything to find that? Did you need some practice to find that? Is it just here? Does it take any effort? Do you have to strain and struggle to be? Yes, now your mind may not be clear as to what that is, or who it is, or anything about it. But in order to be just experiencing the sense of being, you don't need the mind, do you? You don't need to even know what it is. You don't have to have any word for it to experience it, right? That is all you need to do. Your mind won't be happy with that. It wants other stuff, other stuff to do. But if what you're trying to do is realize yourself, I just showed you yourself. That's it. That's you. Empty, infinite, boundless. Right? That sense of being. See if you can find an edge to the sense of being. Right? If you think of it as a form, you'll find an edge. But if you're just kind of marinating, the term Muji likes to use, in the sense of being, you'll notice that you can't really find a beginning to it. You can't find an end. You can't find a boundary. Because you, are not a thing. Consciousness is not an object. So it cannot be perceived. So self-realization is the realization that that's who I am. That is me. That the one hearing me speak right now is you. That is the infinite consciousness. And we don't need to project, oh, infinite, what is that? Any kind of lofty spiritual things on it. Keep it simple. Just keep yourself right there in the simple sense of presence. the simple awareness of being. And let yourself become really interested in that. Now, the mind's going to want to go and look for something. Oh, how do I self-realize, right? And it's going to, you can spend lifetimes, different gurus, all sorts of things. There's a million practices for every level of human endeavor in terms of the spiritual discovery. The one I teach and the one that I've embraced is the direct one. It is the most direct path. There are no processes. It is the direct seeing into your own nature without anything extra added. So if I take away the past, I take away the future, I take away all thoughts about myself, I take away all associations, I take away all feelings, because there's something that I am aware of, and the sensation I am aware of. I want to see the I that is aware of it. Nothing extra. And of course, it's just this, just like this. And so there's no what's next. There's no, well, now what happens for realization? Put that out. Forget enlightenment. Forget spiritual attainment. All of those are extra. Just be. I mean, that's what we're looking for. Just me. Nothing extra. No illusions, no delusions, no conditioning. Pure me. Right? That would be self-realization, would be realizing myself without anything extra added. And so what do? Well, take all the extra stuff out. The thoughts of the past, the future, sensation, all of that. The idea of what's next, practice, enlightenment, spirituality, take all of it out. And you're still here, aren't you? You're still here. Something remains, something you cannot take out. You are not a form. That's why the mind can't grasp you. That's why self-realization is not of the mind. Because the mind can only deal in objects, compare and contrast, and etc. You're not an object. Consciousness is not a thing. And yet, you're clearly that, aren't you? I mean, you're conscious, you're perceiving, you're experiencing. But you're way, way more than anything that you experience. Thoughts? I can't be my thoughts. They come and go. I watch them come and go. I'm obviously something much more subtle and much deeper than just a thought. So no thought that I can think about myself will be really 100% accurate. None of it can be the absolute. They will always be some kind of a reduction. Some kind of a form. Right? I'm not a form. Presence is not a form. It's not the presence of some object. It is just presence. It is just being. I just am. Not as something. I just am. Completely formless, and yet real. Solid as a rock. Unmovable as a mountain. And you'll just find that the habit is always the mind thinking of the I, of myself, as an object, as a body in a world. Right? And it's not true. It's not what you are. That's just thoughts about you. But the you that is behind and underneath and the source of all those thoughts is not limited by the thoughts. Any more than the sky is limited by the clouds that pass through it, or space is limited by the stars that appear in it. You are the limitless space in which all of that appears. And there's just one unfortunate thought, and that's the thought that I am a form, I am the body. That thought isn't true. It's a thought. It can come up. Any thought can happen, right? But it's not true. You're not that. You are the one looking at thoughts clearly, right? I mean, that's self-evident. Just let's look for yourself. The thoughts come and go, and you're watching them. Well, okay, then I'm not, essentially, I am not a thought. Then no thought, because all thoughts come and go, no thought can possibly know myself as a thought. Well, how do I know myself? Well, I just do. Just kind of this intuitive, subjective sense. I know that I am. Mooji refers to that as a non-phenomenal recognition. I just know that I am. This is all the, for lack of a better word, practice that you need. But it isn't really even a practice. It's just kind of looking clearly. Just kind of eliminating everything that's not you and just being with what's left. And what's left? Just the pure sense of boundless being. Does that help you with that? Was it K. Kapoor? Does that help you? Let's see. I go in and out of this seeing, but I feel like, this Sunil, I feel like I've failed when I go back into self-identification. Okay, good. Now, you notice that you've noticed yourself in the identification, right? That's a good thing, right? I noticed that. And then when you do, the mind goes, oh, God, you failed, look, right? But aren't you just aware of that as well? Isn't that just another thought that's coming and going, right? Yes, it's a self-degrading thought, and it's one we've listened to, right? It's one you've just been listened to a lot, and so it seems to have some weight behind it, but just stand back for a second. It's just another thought. What makes that thought true? Well, nothing. It's not true. It's just a thought appearing. So just take your disidentification even deeper, one step back. And don't worry, yes, you're going to re-identify. It happens all the time. The opportunity to re-identify is going to constantly be presenting itself. It's constantly presenting itself to a sage. They just don't get fooled anymore. That's all. So it's going to happen. Right? Fall in love with the truth that you're seeing. This isn't a mission to get out of identification. It's simply a seeing that, oh, that's not what I am. And it's a liberation. Right? It's not really freedom from as it is freedom to. Freedom to be fully and unapologetically yourself. See, the mind also makes a goal of awakening, and I can't seem to stop this trend of resistance. Well, then just see it. Just notice it. Oh, there it is again. Right? By stopping it, I sense that what you mean is for that to stop happening. Well, it'll stop happening when it ceases to be of any value to you, right? So you're seeing that there's this tendency, this drive to want to make a pursuit of awakening. I'm trying to be enlightened. And you realize, then you can see that that's coming from a place of lack, a place that somehow I'm not that. I'm not my true self. I'm something else. Right? Say, wow, is that really true? Well, no, it isn't. And it's okay that thought patterns, because you believed it to be true for a very long time, so those patterns of thoughts are going to continue. You just say, oh, there it is again. And sometimes you think, damn, caught me again. I'm going to get it next time. It's okay, right? Notice you're making this, you're turning this, making this heavy. You don't need to make it heavy. You know, I'm seeing it. Oh, thank God I'm seeing it. Think of all the years, maybe lifetimes, that you went and didn't see it at all. We're completely immersed in it, living it as if it was the truth. I mean, thank God, the glimmer, the door, the window has cracked open. We can see there's light coming into the room. Yeah, is it all gone? Is all the darkness gone? No. But, the light's coming in, right? So rejoice in the light. Rejoice in what you are seeing. Every time you catch yourself that you have re-identified, you go, there it is. And then rejoice in the fact that you caught yourself. And believe me, the times in which you're identifying will get shorter and shorter. You'll just be catching it quite spontaneously. But you can't become really adept at that by beating yourself up about it. Demeaning yourself for, I failed again. That's just another trick of the mind to perpetuate itself. Don't buy it. Right? God isn't angry with you. You know, you, know, you will just get one opportunity after another for all eternity until finally the whole thing just collapses and it pops and you are fully aware of who you are. Jill says, GP, right before coming on here, I was listening to Stephen Walensky's latest YouTube. He was a longtime student of Nisargadatta. He seemed to be saying that even the belief that we are consciousness has become a new identity. In the absolute, there's not even awareness. What do you think about that? Stephen is teaching very, very advanced things, and he's absolutely right in it, in that. My own experience, and I model myself on my teacher. Which is Muji, and the way he approaches it. So my experience is that a statement like that is way beyond what most people can grasp, and so I'm not here. I'm here to apply skillful means to communicate as clearly I can to the state of mind that I'm talking to help move the needle, to start to bring it to a new level of self-perception. Steve is absolutely correct. When you get into the pure absolute, there's nothing but the pure absolute, right? There are no more objects. But the misunderstanding when that is heard by most people is that there's nothing. It's just that what happens is that what appear to be objects, we realize there's nothing really there. There's no real self there. I mean, all we're seeing is a constant transformation of thought. And so Buddha would say it's both real, it both exists and does not exist. We experience things conventionally as if they actually had an existence. We can talk about this microphone here or this or the phone. But if we really dive down into it, we find there's nothing there. There's just this swirling stuff going on. And so form is simply perceived. And so we see that the emptiness that is the true nature of being and form are one and the same. So it's absolutely true that even that ultimately no thing exists at all. There is just pure being. And he's absolutely right. As the conversation, as this kind of non-dual teaching gets out there more widespread, you can listen to it on YouTube, the mind will pick up something, I'm pure consciousness, and turn it into a concept. That's what it does, right? We're kind of stuck with that. Steve is extremely articulate, and he's very good at being very precise for drawing for drawing our attention away from just another concept into what the concept is pointing at. When you say pure consciousness, I am consciousness. What am I pointing at? Remember, I keep pointing you back to your experience. You're hearing my words. There's this place that is registering something, it knows it exists, right? The word I use for that is consciousness. I could use any word whatsoever, but I'm pointing you to the actual experience. And in the experience, everything just kind of is subsumed into it. And so you realize that the absolute is free of all objects. It doesn't even know itself in that sense. And yet at the same time, it does, right? It is not. See, for us, when we think about knowing, we're knowing objects. You know, I know this thing here, this light here, and I know this stool sitting next to me, and I know this phone in my hand. That's knowledge. How do you know something that is not an object, that isn't perceivable? This is the nature of the absolute. It is simply knowing itself as itself. But that self-knowledge gives rise to all form. So you cannot separate the two. It's extremely subtle. It's extremely subtle, and I'm impressed that you're reading Stephen Walensky. He's not light reading by any stretch, but an amazing guy. I've not met him personally, but an amazing guy. So does that help you, Jill? Is that kind of like clarify it? You don't want to have people drinking from a fire hose. You don't want to throw more on than somebody can grasp. Move the needle, right? I'm here to alleviate suffering, and I do that by alleviating at every level I can the belief in a separate self, which is the source of all suffering. Right? We'll let the absolute reveal itself to itself. But yes, he's any insight, when given over to the mind, will become a concept and thus become wrong. So it's always a matter of pointing back to the direct experience. Take everything away, even the idea of an absolute, even the idea of enlightenment. And what is left when you've taken out everything you could possibly take? Whatever's left must be the pure, undefiled, absolute you. Whatever that is. Sonia, what institutions do you think are collapsing in today's world? All of them. All of political institutions, economic institutions, religious institutions, all of it. The entire culture that grew out of the invention of agriculture 12,000 years ago is collapsing. We're going through an epoch of a completely new version of humanity, a completely different state of consciousness. So the entire model that grew when we left the the tundra and the plains and started forming cities and agriculture and stuff, that entire model is collapsing. The magnitude of the shifts going on in the world today, it is not merely just kind of a correction, as the Wall Street people like to say, because they don't want to give up the idea that the entire thing is collapsing around them. But it is. Dinesh says, how do we balance realization and chasing realization? Well, the moment you realize that you're chasing realization, you realize that you've identified with the finite sense of a self. Just bring yourself back to what's right here, what's right now. I can only chase something if I believe it to be something other than myself. Okay, there's the thought that the realization is something I'm going to attain, rather than realize what it is, realization of me. Right? Just take out everything that's not you. Just keep taking everything out until you can't take anything more out. And what's left? That's you. Right? So yes, there's an impulse that arises. You know, we feel the limitation of identification with a separate self. We feel that sense of limitation, which inspires us to seek the truth. And everybody goes through that, to seek who we really are. And if we've had a taste of it before it's actually settled in, we're going to be chasing the bliss. We're going to be reaching for that shiny object. But then we have to stop and go, well, wait a minute, where am I reaching? And who's doing the reaching? What am I actually looking for? What I'm looking for is the true sense of myself. Well, it can't be out there. It's got to be right here. So all the teachers they're telling me to turn within is true. Okay, what am I looking for when I turn within? Well, we're looking for that sense of being. We're trying to feel and see ourselves without anything extra added. Pure you. So you'd say, well, okay, that's not me. It's a thought. It's coming and going. So I'm not that. Oh, I can't be anything. No thought is good. So I can't possibly even use my mind to know me. This kind of knowledge is not objective knowledge. It's subjective. This is non-phenomenal recognition. The only thing I go on is this constant, perpetual, subjective sense of being. Wow, that's always here. And I'm always here, because I'm always aware of this. So that sense of being must be what I am. Not knowable, not definable, not an object, just a sense. Some religious traditions, they refer to it as just spirit. Not a spirit, but just spirit. Not a form. Just spirit. The Holy Spirit. The spirit of being. The sense I am without any object associated with it. You don't need to chase that, do you? You just need to look. You just need, and then you'll notice that the mind gets distracted. The mind wants an object to hold on to, right? And so, oh, well, you're not very, you're of no use to me in this. You're very useful, like you. A lot of fun. We can do a lot of things together, but for this, you're the wrong tool for the job. Seeing, inner vision is the right tool for this job. Vedanta is the right tool for this job. Dennis says, hey, Zaddy. Nikki says, hey. Thanks so... Oops, what happened? Oh my goodness, we have a ton of questions. I'm not going to be able to get to all of these. Wow. Oh, Sally from London says, I read and hear a lot about spirit and soul. Are these both names for consciousness, awareness? Do they mean something different? No, they're just a different word for the same thing. I mean, I like the word spirit and I like the word soul. If you make a spirit, right? You got a spirit, he's got a spirit, the spirit of this, the spirit of that, you've kind of missed it. But if you see that it's kind of like the vibe, the energy, it gives off the, you're with somebody and you have a certain feeling that you pick up from them, that's like a spirit. It's not a form, is it? It's just kind of, but it's not blankness. There's definite character and quality to it, but it's just formless. Soul is the same thing. People want to think of a soul. I have my soul in my body, and when I die, my soul goes to heaven, or leaves the body, or something like that. But I see soul as one as well. I see soul as another name for God, or the I am, or consciousness. Because really, we can talk about a soul, but to peel everything away, and the sense of being, I mean, what could be more of a soul than that? It's the heart, it's the soul, it's the essence, it's the expanse, right? So don't put any boundary around anything. Take soul without making it a soul. Take being without making it a being, and you simply have being itself, soul itself, spirit itself. And I like the word spirit. Periods of time when I use it quite a bit. Certainly I would use it if I was talking to people who are more leaning towards Christianity, because the Holy Spirit is one of the the Trinity of the Holy Trinity, Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So it's actually part of the Godhead. So the essence, the nature of spirit is kind of this. It's got a sense of. It actually derives from the word pneuma, which means wind. You could actually call it the holy wind or breath, right? It's really just like the breath of God. It is the invisible, non-material substance of everything. Spirit is actually what everything is made of. Right? And all the things are these momentary appearance of the formless spirit. Does that help? Does that answer you, Sally? Oops, a bunch of writing. I have no idea. It's not a ha ha ha. I have no idea what that was. It looks like it almost looks like you sat on the keyboard. Hi from Croatia. Hi, Robert. I went through a big depression. I was home for a year and undergoing therapy. By chance, I stumbled upon Eckhart, you, Rupert, and others. Today, I am mostly really happy. Just really happy. Wow. I hope it stays like that. I think my depression freed me a bit. I'm thankful for it. Yes. Yes, it did, and it served the purpose. All of the adversity we experience in our life, if we really take it to heart, will lead us into a deeper truth about ourselves. And the more severe it is, the more we can't ignore it. Minor things we can ignore, we can suppress, we can distract ourselves, but major things, when we can't, when you've run out of moves, there's a willingness to begin to surrender and sink in. And then you can see that depression is simply something that does come and go. Yes, it came and stayed, mostly because you really can't find a way out. But little by little you begin to surrender more and more to it. And when you do that, of course, space begins to open up. Really, the more you resist something, the harder it gets. And you say, I hope it stays like that. There's no need to open up a door to some kind of a relapse. And I say that because, something may come up in your experience that before would have triggered depression. And some of those feelings may start to come up. If you approach those with, oh no, I'm going back there again, you're gonna actually start feeding it energy. Just say, oh, okay. All it's ever been has been reactive patterns within the nervous system. That's all it ever was. And so if something gets triggered and you feel those feelings coming up, you just join me and Rupert and and others and just kind of sink back into that place where you're simply witnessing it happen. And you'll notice that the witness of this depression or excitement, or whatever it is itself not depressed. It's immune to that. It's all what's happening in the experience. And if there's no identification with the experience, or no struggle with it, or no pushing it away, it has no place to land. You've removed the Velcro. It can't stick to you. Because it can't stick to consciousness. It can't stick to the formless. So just put that thought out. It says it can happen again. Believe me, other things are going to happen in your life. Things are going to come up. Things are going to be triggered. Fine. You know who you are. And who you really are never gets triggered. It is the witness of all of the various kinds of functions and behaviors and reactions going on in the system. And they are just reactions going on in the system. There's no self there. There's nobody there. And it certainly isn't you. But I am so honored, really, to have been able to contribute to your self-realization that has freed you and even made you grateful for the experience. Yeah, that's a true transformation, my friend. When we look back and go, God, I'm glad that happened. Oftentimes in the middle of it, we don't want to say that. But when it's actually served its purpose, sorrow, suffering, they never leave us where they find us. Sweet are the uses of adversity, to quote Shakespeare. Your own says, your answers are awesome and very useful, GP. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes, sometimes I don't feel clear at all. And I'm like, and it's like, the best Satsang. And other times I feel like I'm sharp as a tack. And, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm not in control of any of this. Thank goodness. Love and peace. Appreciate if you could answer my question above. Oh, did I miss it? I'm not seeing it. Love and peace. I'm not seeing it. Let's see if he asked it again. And please allow me to ask you, did you eat meat or drink coffee before or still do? I've heard it's not good for the body and mind. Thanks. I don't eat meat. I haven't eaten meat for 25 years. There's a lot of reasons for it. Part of it is health, although the body's quite capable of eating meat. In the West, we eat way, way more than the body needs. I mean, there's a lot of things that are really out of whack in our Western diet. I do like coffee. I like my almond milk lattes. I enjoy sipping. I make them extra hot so they last a long time, and I sip on them. I get decaf sometimes, but not all the time. I'm aware of the functioning of my body, and I don't pump it full of a bunch of stuff that it doesn't need. I'm very careful about what I eat. I don't eat any processed foods. I don't eat bad stuff. I eat very healthy, and it's not hard, really, to just adopt a very simple regimen for nutrition. And that's just eat a lot of green vegetables, leafy green vegetables. Stay away from the fats. Stay away from the sugar. And if you eat meat, don't eat a lot of it. The body was not meant to eat meat 3 times a day. Just doesn't know what to do with it. That's why we have problems with obesity and weight loss and heart conditions and all of that sort of stuff. I've just chosen not to eat meat at all because I don't think it's necessary. I don't need to kill an animal to feed me, and I don't think it's sustainable over the long haul. So I don't do it. Right? It has impact on the environment. The impact of our appetite for meat has an enormous impact on everything. I mean, the animal agriculture is the #1 cause of global warming. More than all the others combined. Like 51% of the greenhouse gases are being produced by animal agriculture, and pollution of the earth and destruction of the rainforest to make cattle farms and things like that. So when you look at it closely, I can't in good conscience eat it, even though I know it's okay for my body in certain amounts, that it's not inherently harmful. Of course, processed, the meat you get in the grocery store is no different than a bag of potato chips. It is so heavily processed with antibiotics and steroids and all sorts of chemicals they have to give them to digest the food that they were never meant to eat in the first place. Unless you're going out and hunting your own elk or something, you can regard most of the meat as you would a bag of Cheetos. It's not healthy. Right? It's not, by healthy I mean it's simply not really what the body was meant to be processing. So I don't get off on that much. Somebody asked me a question. This is my thing. I usually have a green smoothie every day with a bunch of green stuff and green and ginger and lemon and stuff, and I drink that down. It's like a week's worth of salad in a glass. And it does have it does have an effect. I'm very healthy for a 66-year-old man, so it does have have its effect. You know, if you're healthy, you can endure. Okay, so you can have you can you can drink wine. You can have the occasional pizza and beer. It's not going to hurt you if your normal trend is healthy. But everything we do has an effect. The choices we make have an effect on the whole world, right? I mean, the animal agriculture uh, industry can only be the way it is because nobody questions it. So question it. Question the choices you're making because the choices you make add up to the experience we have as a whole, as all of humanity. Humanity is as a whole the sum total of all the things we've agreed on to be true. And and as we can see now that it's kind of falling apart, that they weren't really true. They were just agreements that we made that are proving to be a little bit on the self-destructive side. Pierre says, is consciousness able to discriminate between experience, or does it allow every experience without choosing? In other words, do we need the mind aspect in order to perceive choice of experiences? Um, Consciousness distinguishes obviously all differences, right? You're seeing me, you're seeing the screen behind me, the little light, this light over here, maybe the microphone kind of sticking up almost into the picture. So that's consciousness, right? Your consciousness. You are distinguishing this from that. Now, what it is, right? You can see the distinguishing. What it is simply a name that we give it. What actually is simply consciousness viewing itself. But we give it a name. Oh, that's GP, that's a screen, that's a microphone, and that sort of thing. And there's no problem with that. And notice that that awareness is simply aware of it all, right? I can say that awareness has no preference for anything. It's completely open and spacious, like space. Space has no preference for what happens inside of it. But preference does arise. Preferring this over that does arise, and it too is being seen in awareness, right? So we're just looking at what your actual experience is. Preferences come and go. It's not permanent. It's not a permanent characteristic. The things I prefer now, I say I prefer. The preferences that are here now are not the same preferences that were here a month ago. You know, with my choice of lunch when I'm done here, you know, it's going to be something in the moment. It's not my permanent choice of lunch. But you can just see that preferences and choosing are things that all just arise within consciousness, and that consciousness, or that pure awareness, doesn't have a preference. It isn't saying, I don't want that. The I don't want that or I do want that is just another thing that's arising within the awareness. Well, that's why I can say that the awareness is pure. It has no preference. It is nothing but awareness. The pure witness is just witnessing, nothing extra added, right? That's always the way you can do it. Just, can I take out whatever isn't that? And what's left will be the pure thing, right? So awareness can be aware of preferences on both sides of the subject, right? It's aware of all of it. So it itself is free from the preference. But the preference still arises, right? You know, life heads in a particular direction. You could call that a preference. You could call it simply the flow of nature. You could call it the flow of the river, however you want to look at it. What's your question there? Do we need the mind aspect in order to perceive choice of experiences? No, we don't. No, it's happening completely without the mind. Perception does not require the mind. The mind is something else that is perceived. And the mind is simply patterns of thought. That's all the mind. It's not a thing thinking. It is patterns of thought. And every object in the universe is a pattern of some sort, a pattern of energy. Thought just happens to be very, very subtle, a very subtle pattern of energy. But the witness of that is not a pattern of energy. It is that which is simply aware of all the patterns of energy, but it itself is not made of that. It is not that. And so you don't need the mind for anything except the things that you use a mind for, right? Remembering how to get home, which is useful, right? Right? But you don't need it. Matter of fact, you don't want it in order to be able to discern who you are, because who you are is not a thought. So therefore, the mind is irrelevant in that equation. That's a direct experience. It's an intuitive hit. I am. Just this. Just this, nothing else. Take away everything, what's left. Just this feeling of being. That's myself. That's my true, ultimate, absolute self. Nothing extra added. No processed foods. You're doing fine, GP. I'm always amazed at your wisdom responses to questions that initially made no sense to me. Well, thank you. Yeah, it helps to know that some of it is landing. Chrissy, hello, Chrissy. Hi, G, from New Zealand. Thank you endlessly. You are expressing as beautifully, as clearly as you always do. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see. Somebody said something to Robert. Bogdan said something to Robert in a language I do not know. Cheryl says, thank you for the pointer, bringing attention to awareness. Much love and gratitude. Great. Fantastic. Yes. The awareness is always there, right? But there's the sense, our active, engagement with life brings attention, which is also appearing in awareness, by the way, like a flashlight, and points it at the various objects. The path to awakening is simply when that attention gets turned around and starts looking back on itself. It starts withdrawing itself from its just total intoxication with the stuff going on out here, and begins to become really curious about the one having the experience, the one who's seeing, the one who's knowing. It goes from the focus on the object, I like that, I want that, to the verb want and like, to the I. Who's the I that wants? Who's the I that's seeing? Who? There's the object, that's clear. The verb, that's clear. But who's the I? Who's this I that wants? I really want that. And I ask them, well, okay, great. Who are you? I really want, well, I know. If you really want that, then you must know who you are. Right? Bring that attention back. Oh, the I. And we find that when we really look at that I we keep referring to, that it's a bunch of thoughts. It's a bunch of ideas. It's not actually who you are. It's like, oh, wow. A bunch of limiting ideas on top of that. That I thought is referencing something that is in fact just a thought. Well, but I'm not just a thought. Clearly. And I'm here whether there's thoughts here or not. Attention just keeps sinking more and more until you become just aware of being aware. And then the duality can collapse. And you see that awareness aware of itself, not as an object. There's not awareness here and then me over here that's aware of awareness. Only awareness is aware. So only awareness can be aware of itself. So its self-realization is the awareness aware of itself. Does that make sense? Very subtle stuff. Whew. When you know you are the awareness, why are you still experiencing the same body, the same feelings, etc.? It's like my awareness and your awareness are different and experiencing a different world. Wonderful, wonderful. All I can say about that is simply let it deepen. Okay? You are the awareness. Right? Okay, I am the awareness. So why am I still experiencing a body? Why am I still experiencing these feelings and the like? Well, I would say, why not? I mean, to know yourself as pure awareness, as pure consciousness, doesn't make the rain stop. The sun comes up again in the morning. Why why should any of the normal functionings of life be any different? But the more you recognize yourself as the awareness, the less you will project on those things some kind of a sense of a self. They will no longer be something really, really important, right? They'll just be the way life is happening, right? That's the difference. And of course, over time, it can take a while, but over time, the feelings will change because the feelings are all revolving around whatever the dominant self-image is. But the more your self-image is becoming the pure awareness, the more those feelings are going to start changing and adapting to that, and life is going to start following that model. But step one, don't make a big deal out of it. Yes, they're going to keep coming, right? Life doesn't stop, right? And and at first they're going to be coming with the same degree of of uh, of suffering that they had before. That is, I shouldn't put it that way. They're going to have the same content as before, but the more you're identified with the awareness and not with the false self, the less suffering those very same feelings will produce. And then the very same feeling will no longer have any sting to it, which of course means it will start to morph into something else. So just keep going back and identifying with the awareness. Don't worry about the effect of it, right? Don't worry about. I mean, your mind's got some expectation. Well, I know I'm awareness. Shouldn't all this be going? Shouldn't I be in perpetual bliss now? It's just an expectation that we had about the nature of spiritual awakening, right? And but what you are experiencing right now is the reality of spiritual awakening. You are waking up to the reality that you are that awareness. So don't lay on it like there's supposed to be some kind of special thing then happens, right? That says, okay, I made it. It's nothing. It's nothing like that. Oh, I am that awareness. And little by little, it's just, well, what's all it is? This will become interesting. What is the nature of existence? What is the nature of an object? What, my goodness, why does anything exist at all? This is just miraculous. But don't question the legitimacy of your seeing because of this idea of the effect it's supposed to have. That's all just spiritual hearsay. That's just, that's just the special effects. That's just the Hollywood version of it, right? What you are experiencing is the real version of it. Don't doubt your experience. Yeah. It's telling you the truth. Sunil says, if truth is unknowable, then how can it stabilize as a way of conscious seeing? Truth is unknowable as an object. It is quite knowable as myself, right? When you refer to knowledge, most of the time human knowledge is simply the description of one thing in terms of another. I know this object because I can look at it. Here's the microphone. I can look at it. There it is. I can see it. I can describe it, right? But the subjective knowledge of myself, I can't step outside of myself and know myself as an object. So that's what I mean, that the truth cannot be known because it's not an object. You can't know the infinite because it's boundless, right? As an object, you can't conceptualize it. But do you know that you exist? Self-evident. That's true knowledge. That's jnana knowledge. That is the sublimation of wisdom. That is seeing things as they are. So you find that truth is not something that's known. Truth is what's doing the knowing. Is that clear? The eyes are the truth. The eyes that are seeing are the truth. So the truth is a living thing, not an idea that you get. It is you. Quick question, how do we know that awareness is infinite? Quick. I invite you to explore it for yourself. You're just going to have to explore it for yourself. Look, see if you can find an end to it. See if you can find some end to your awareness. There's an end to the content. I mean, every night we go to sleep into deep sleep, and the content's gone. There's nothing there. So there's no sense of time, no sense of space, no sense of identity. I mean, you're not even there. There's no sense of self. Nothing, right? But there is awareness. It's still aware. You're still there. In fact, you'll wake up going, wow, what a great sleep. I mean, right? We need to dispossess ourselves of all that stuff. I mean, my God, without sleep, imagine being, there'd be no relief. there'd be no relief. So you just explore it. You know, the Muji's invitation is a beautiful way to do it. And just look up invitation Muji on YouTube. It's a beautiful way to just explore this space. And you just have to look for yourself. Conceptually, how do I know it's infinite? I can't say it. I can say it experientially, but I can't say it. I can't say it as a concept, right? Okay, just look. Just look. Can you find a beginning to it? And feel into it. Feel into it. Did this have a beginning? I mean, if it had a beginning, I would have had to have been there and noticed that it had a beginning, in which case, well, wait a minute, I just noticed that it had a beginning. So I was there before it began. You just keep exploring it, keep deepening it, keep looking, keep being really curious and interested in this thing. And those questions, the questions that aren't really getting you anywhere will fall away, and the questions that do will come to the surface and be answered quite spontaneously. GP, nice to be with you tonight. This is Contemporary Class. Oh, Laird. Hi, Laird. Thank you. I love listening to you. Thank you. Good to see you again. Sorry we weren't able to make the Chicago thing happen. We're not giving up yet. Let's see. He says, when will I not need to work hard to distinguish between my ego and the real I? When will I be able to see through it more easily than more automatically? I suppose it requires repetition. Thank you. Repetition and love. Fall in love with the path to awakening, and not just because then this moment is great. This moment is wonderful. This moment is the awakening. Then it's all part and parcel of the same thing. If it becomes, why is it so hard? I can't wait to get to awakening, so it won't be so hard anymore. You're creating a hardness where there need not be one. You're creating a gap between you and the awareness that you are. Just recognize the utter blessing it is to even be able to say, even if your head is completely filled with doubts, something inside of you knows that what I'm saying here is true. Rejoice in that. Give that more attention. It's like, wow, I'm on this path, and it's real. I mean, I know it's real. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff going on. It's chaotic as hell, and it does seem like it's really hard, and I can't concentrate, right? But wow, I'm actually on this path. And every step I take is unfolding more of my vast infinitude. Wow. Fall in love with this. Fall in love with the process of awakening, and then you'll find that there is no process to awakening, that you're already the awakened one. And so, yes, on one level, if you look at it from the point of view of practice, it does require repetition. It was repetition that got the thought pattern stuck in the loop that make us think that we're a finite being and not the infinite being that we actually are, just a pattern. And every time you catch it, you step out of that pattern. Oh, that's not really who I am. Who am I really? I don't know. I don't know as an object. I can't know as an object. So there's no point even trying to know what I am. Okay, then how do I know myself? By being myself, by feeling, by intuitively recognizing my own existence. And then realizing that all the thoughts I have about that existence, I had to be here first. I had to exist before there could even be thoughts about me. But all those thoughts do is limit this existence. And when I really feel into just pure being, I can't find any limits in it. Everything can appear to it. In this particular case, this thing keeps appearing, but so what? Anything can appear. And if my attention goes elsewhere, something else is going to appear, which means that I'm even bigger than any experience I could possibly have. Is that helping, Laird? Namaste from Khalid. Hello, Khalid. IGP, this is Ishil, Vancouver. How to bring deeper beliefs, thoughts on the surface into awareness. I realized that thoughts aren't self. Since then, a flow came with it, but lots are hidden. Can't notice them. Don't worry about that. We're not on a witch hunt. We're not trying to dredge up all of our traumas and the like. There's times for that. Just continue. The more open and spacious you are, the more loving and accepting you are. The nature of awareness is love, right? Because it's totally open. It's totally the feminine principle. It is totally just there, open, mysterious, receiving, right? So it has no issues with anything. That spirit is the inner environment of inner safety that can allow traumatic material and old stuff to come to the surface. You don't have to try to bring it to the surface. Just keep dumping gobs and gobs of heavy dosages of love. Right? And that safe space will create everything it needs to eradicate the traumatic material from the system, to discharge the energy that is no longer needed, to drop the defensive postures and behaviors that aren't necessary anymore. Right? So don't turn it into a project. I've got to uncover all of this hidden material. That's self-help and psychology. And I don't teach self-help and psychology. I teach spiritual awakening. And the spiritual awakening will accomplish that. But that's not its mission. Its mission is to know who you are. When you know who you are, the environment of safety is so powerful that it naturally just clears away everything that isn't you. And the traumatic material, the stuff we carry around, the conditions, the burdens, all of that aren't you. They were all just added later. They were reactions to the environment. And so they will eventually just fall away because they're not you. Right? We are simply purifying our sense of self. And so and by pure, I don't mean some kind of moral state. I mean nothing but you. Nothing but you. Nothing extra. Just you. Just as you are. Just this. The pure, unadulterated, pristine, originally innocent you. Because that is what you are. You were never touched by your conditioning. I'm going to kind of bring this to a close here now. So many questions, they keep coming. You, the real you, was never touched by the conditioning. Yeah, we got this idea that I am my body, I am my conditioning, I am my past, I am my memories, I am all of these things. But it's just a thought. It's not the truth. You have never been your conditioning. You were never corrupted. You were never lost. You were never tainted. You were never born in sin. You were never made impure. Nothing impure has ever actually penetrated you. You are now the same pure, innocent being that you always were, like a little child. It's like a polluted river. At one level, we see the polluted river, and it looks like just this big mishmash of pollution in the water and the like. But if we zoom in down to the level of the molecules, we'll see that the pollution and the water have not bonded. In fact, there's space in between them. The water has never even been touched. And so if you remove all that pollution, it's not like the water now is clean. What really has happened is the same original pure water that has never been anything other than water, never been anything other than clean, is seen in its true nature, because it is no longer being obscured by that which is not it. And that's what it means to come to see yourself as you actually are. You see yourself purely as you are, nothing extra added, and then you find that you were never conditioned. You were never lost. You were never actually even asleep. Thank you all for being here. As always, it is just such a delight to hang with you all. Let's see. I don't actually know how to. I don't know how to stop this thing. I've not done a YouTube one on this before. Anyway, thank you all. So the biggest takeaway is to let things fall away and see the self-identification has no big deal, but is something, just another thing you see. Yes. The self-identification is just something else that occurred, but it never touched the original, pure, innocent you. That has remained pure right from the get-go.